Yo, what's going on, guys? Kryptonic here, and today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting video idea that I had that went completely wrong. So if you guys do end up enjoying the video, make sure to drop a like on it. But anyways, guys, let's get straight into the video. Now, you guys probably think Kryptonic doesn't upload, and you know what? You're right, I don't upload, but sometimes I get these crazy ideas that I know are going to be the best ideas ever, and things just don't go the way you want them to go sometimes, and that's happened multiple times to me at least. And one of these experiences I'm going to be talking about because it's something I worked on for the longest time, and it was just problem after problem. And I want to show you guys that every YouTuber that you see out there, whenever they have a project in mind, it's not always going to be exactly the way they tell you. Sometimes they run into problems that they might not put on the camera because it's easier to just say this worked over explaining how it didn't work and how they resolved it. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing today, except that I never resolved the problem because I'm a loser and I couldn't figure it out. And by couldn't figure it out, I mean I didn't want to put more money into it because I was already a little bit further in than I expected to be. So starting off with this video, basically my idea was, oh, you guys like the RGB strips? I like the RGB strips. Anyway, starting off with the video, I was going to buy a AM4 motherboard and a case from Dell Inspiron for only $50. So that's a pretty good deal for a pre-built with a motherboard and nothing else. So you get the case and the motherboard. So that was a pretty radical deal in my opinion. And my first thought was, you know what would be the best thing to do to keep it very low budget and very cool looking? It would be to buy a Ryzen 5 2400G and just make it an APU based computer, so that way I don't even have to put a graphics card, I don't have to add any power supply to it, I don't have to upgrade it, and then just obviously adding some RAM and a hard drive. So I was like, this is gonna be really easy. Once I got all the parts in, the processor, the RAM, and the hard drive, I put everything together, and to my surprise I somehow had bent the pins, because as I was putting in the processor I dropped it, but it landed on the top and not on the pins, so I wasn't even worried. But to my surprise, the pins only got more and more bent the harder I tried to fix them. So I ended up having to trash that, and I ended up ordering another 2400G, put it in there, and everything was working fine. And I was like, oh, finally I got everything working. And what do you think happens? Apparently Dell Inspiron pre-builds don't have an HDMI port on the motherboard. So you know what that means? That means that I can't use the integrated graphics on the 2400G because the motherboard doesn't have, you know, an HDMI out. So that was another problem I ran into, and I was like, do I just buy a graphics card, or do I buy like a USB to HDMI or something like that? I had no idea what I was going to do at this point, and I ended up coming to the conclusion that I was going to buy a GTX 1050 Ti. And I was like, okay, all my problems are solved now. I can get this whole project done with. It's been like a month since I started collecting the parts, and I finally found a good deal. I got a GTX 1050 Ti for only $60, which I think is a pretty good deal. It's a MSI edition one with like red and black, and then the white lettering for MSI. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be it. Everyone's gonna be like, wow, that's really cheap. And I was super hyped for this project. And then I put everything together, I click the power on button, everything turns on. But then I run into another problem, that none of my USB accessories are getting power, or my monitor is displaying anything. And I was like, okay, well, what could it be? You know, I've already looked at every situation, and after trying everything out, I came to the conclusion that the motherboard is dead. And that was going to be even more money because I had previously bought a power supply, another motherboard to test out. But then once I realized that, hey, I just need a motherboard that works, I ended up selling that first motherboard, thinking that the one I have already, the one that came with a pre-built, was going to be all good to go, because everything would turn on. GPU lights, CPU fan, case fans, everything was turning on, but the motherboard was just not posting. So it came to the conclusion that the motherboard is fried. I'm going to show you guys some b-roll of basically what I have at the moment, and it looks really pretty. It looks a little messy at the same time because of the cables, but I basically just have this shell that I can't use, because in order to use a shell I have to plug it in with a proprietary connections onto a proprietary motherboard. And if I buy a new motherboard, half of the case isn't going to be usable, because to turn it on, the connection at the front panel connections are all proprietary, so they're not going to fit onto any motherboard. So then this case is kind of a junk case, and then the motherboard didn't work, so all I'm left with is a processor, RAM, hard drive and a GPU, but I can't really put it together. So I'm just freaking out at this point, and I'm like, okay, well, this computer build did not go whatsoever the way it was supposed to go. And you know, sometimes that happens. You can't control that. Those are things that when you buy used, sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And there isn't really anything wrong with that. It's just a risk that you have to take into consideration every time. Unfortunately for me, I took a really long time with it, trying to part everything together to get it to be ultra cheap, because the GPU alone, 150 is what they go for on OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace, and I got it for $60. That's a really good deal in my opinion, and I was just really excited to bring that to you guys. But the entire system ended up being trash basically, so now I'm stuck with a processor that I can't really put to use. I have to buy a new motherboard to get everything working again, and then I would have to get a new case, because this case, even if I get a new motherboard, the power supply wouldn't fit, so then it becomes its own issue, and then I wouldn't be able to use any of the front panel connections, so I wouldn't be able to turn it on, and it's just a big ordeal overall. And I think it's a little bit ridiculous, but you know what? Sometimes that happens, and sometimes you just gotta deal with it. And my dealing with it, at least, is just gonna be scrapping the project, because there's no way I want to buy a new case and no way I want to buy a new motherboard just to put everything in. I'd be going over my budget that I wanted to do that with, because I had to buy new RAM because no one was selling RAM. I had to buy a decently sized and decently priced 500 gig SSD. Then I had to buy the GPU. Then I had to buy the power supply, which wasn't too expensive. I got it on a good deal on OfferUp. But overall, I spent more than I really wanted to for this project, just to give you guys like a budget build. And now I'm just gonna have to scrap the entire project. But you know, that happens. Like I said, buying used is 99% of the time a great time. And that other 1%, sometimes people don't tell you, hey, this product isn't working, and they just sell it to you. But you know, it happens. It really does happen, and it's happened to me a few times, and there isn't really anything I can say. Sometimes you get screwed over, sometimes, most of the time you don't. So that's why a lot of the times I stick to new PC parts. But I know that Christopher Yee, Coalition Gaming, and a bunch of other people from the tech fam consistently do budget builds basically, which I think is fabulous that they're able to do it so well. But for me, I'm such an amateur when it comes to like putting a full video together. I always do budget builds in the back, and I never record it. Like from the last video I've made till now, I've probably like bought and sold like 2 computers that were pre-built, or computers that needed like a little GPU or something, and then I sold them for profit. And I've done that twice now, and I haven't made a single video about it. So there's that. I don't know, I get really carried away and really excited when I'm working on this stuff that I forget to hit record on anything, and it happens. But anyways guys, that was my little story of how buying something used and working on a project can sometimes go wrong. Like I said, not every video you see out there works exactly the way the YouTuber makes it out to be. Sometimes there are problems along the road, the BIOS, the RAM, you know, there's always little problems, and they kind of underplay it. But when you're working on a project and you're kind of rushed for time or money, you're strapped for a certain amount of money that you're trying to spend, it becomes really hard to get that video out, just because, you know, little problems end up making a way bigger problem down the road than you would think. Anyways guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys are not part of the Discord, make sure to go check that out down below. Make sure to go check out other members of the tech fam, because they know how to do budget builds way better than I do. And if you have any question, comments, or anything similar that has happened to you while upgrading your own PC or something like that, a friend's PC, let me know, because I want to see some other bad stories, so that way I feel a little bit better. Anyways guys, hopefully you guys have a great day, and I will catch you guys around. Peace guys.